Hi everybody, welcome to CCTV, Channel 17, live at 525, the Preservation Burlington Show. Preservation Burlington is a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and our mission is to preserve and protect the historic architecture and livability of Burlington through education and advocacy. And I think we're popping up our website, or bits and pieces of our website, so everybody can go to preservationburlington.org and see what we're all about and
what we're up to.
Yep, because we're going to mention the schedule in about a minute and get everything wrong so people can actually fact check.
Go to the website and check
for
us out. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So since you brought that up, what are we doing?
Well, I mean, we have such a... All the cemetery tours are coming up. I think we have 3 of them, and I forget the exact dates. I do know that Saturday is the Ramble in the Old North End, which
the 27th.
The 27th, yep. And we're doing 2 walking tours of the Old North End, one at 10 o'clock, one at 1 o'clock. And Carolyn Bates, who does all our photography and stuff, especially for the home store, she's been putting out those books on murals in Burlington, and she's giving a tour at 2:15, I believe. They're walking around the Old North End to look at all these murals and talk about that. So that's that's our part. But there's over 40 vendors. There's all kinds of, just
I think this is going to be my very first one, or my second one, because we did one walking tour together, but actually participating in the event this year.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
I'm really excited. That was a long time ago. We're not going to say how many
years. Karen is doing, no, we're not going to do that. We filled in. Karen's doing it. Always well attended. I think Ryan is helping. So, we have a robust education committee this time around. So that's going to be, so that's a big upcoming thing. Great. Tonight, do you have stuff to add?
Nope.
You sure?
I was just taking a breath. It's okay. Go ahead.
I'd like to thank our guest. I'm going to really go out on a limb and say my good friend, Bob McCullough. Thank you. We've interacted a lot over the years, and we've actually had a beer at Queen City Brewery, so that's my hook. Bob's my friend. And you invited me to team teach on one of the courses for the Historic Preservation Program. Yes. Bob has run the Historic Preservation Program for a really long time, and you're in the process of reimagining it and handing over the reins, and thank you for coming here tonight.
Sure. Well, thanks for the invitation. Well, I've taught for 25 years. I've been the director for 3 years. We're in a transitional period, and we're revising the curriculum, trying to take advantage of technology and build enrollments through remote classes, and introduce some new classes that I think are interesting that have potential for promotion and marketing the program. And we've been in this transitional phase now for about 3 years, and I'll be phasing out and turning the program over to our new director, who will be Devin Coleman, who's the state architectural historian.
Yeah. We all know and love Devin. I saw the article. It was a really good article.
Devin's on the board with us, and Devin and I were both in the same UVM Historic Preservation class together, and it's really, really fun for me to see him step into this role, because I've got lots of dirt on Devin, and I can tell some stories, but I won't. I will keep them
unless it's funny,
myself.
then you will.
The
thing I love about the program, and I moved up here in '98 or something, and as you know, Bob, we've almost always had UVM graduate students working for my company in the summers, and then they always go back to school when you need them the most. But it's a really close-knit community. Even when diaspora, they go all over the country for different jobs and stuff, but we're all in touch, either Facebook or texting, or they're back in town, from FEMA.
I think, UVM Historic Preservation alumni are known across the country. It's a really good reputation. It's a great program.
That originated in your class, didn't it? Weren't you the class that started the Alumni Association?
Yes, we were. I think we were the largest class in history. Right. I think there were 17 of us crammed around that table in the basement. And it was a great time.
That's been a really important group. And I love the Facebook page.
I'm so glad it's still going strong. There's some dedicated people in that group. So tell us about some of the changes that are coming down the pike. You had mentioned when we were talking earlier that there's some new classes coming into the curriculum. I'd love to hear about those.
Right. We've created 2 new classes recently. One of them is the Management of Historic Site Museums, which will be taught by the staff at the Vermont Division for Historic Preservation, Jamie Duggan, and the State Historic Sites Chief, who has recently left and will be replaced shortly, I presume.
Oh, okay.
Right. That was a bit of a surprise. But the idea is to use the State Historic Sites as classrooms.
Oh, wonderful.
And not only give students a chance to see what it's like to run an historic site museum and all the challenges, from accounting to rising damp to leaky roofs, all of that, trying to juggle all that and find money to pay for it. And also at the same time give students the chance to actually do actually do work on historic sites. It's a different kind of setting, and learn what it's like to achieve a high standard of restoration or rehabilitation. It's a little bit different than working in the regulatory arena, where you're applying the Secretary's standards for rehabilitation. Now you have a chance to really focus on restoration and see what the high standard is.
Really is,
What those nuts and bolts are, and then how that relates to regulatory oversight and stuff for all that.
Right,
you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's, I think I'm really excited about that class. And the other class that I think also has a lot of potential is a class we've titled Intersections of Culture, Nature, and Community. And the idea is to cross disciplines and demonstrate where opportunities exist for bridging this divide between cultural and natural resource protection, and looking for places where we can demonstrate the ability to fashion opportunities for creative ways to bridge that divide. And at the same time, expose students to some of the challenges that preservation community is facing right now: diversity, inclusiveness, middle-class housing, and to use the national parks as sites where some of these discussions can take place. Stonewall in New York City, for example, or the Harriet Tubman site in New York State.
So often the national parks entwine both of the land conservation and our built heritage.
Right.
They both exist intertwined in those sites, so that it's a perfect marriage of those two things. You can't really separate. We can separate them out here because usually we're just worried about a house, or
well, not really. Like if you look at the cathedral, right? The case, that is a perfect marriage of the two. It's a historic site and it's a cultural landscape as well. And this really sort of reminds me of this summer we had this spring, we had a class from St. Mike's come out and ask for a tour of Church Street, and the students were asking some really interesting questions about preservation and its relationship to sustainability and climate and stuff. And so I think it's going to be a really fascinating mix. Yeah.
And there are opportunities to connect with other colleges on campus, Rubenstein, and I think that's an important part too, because right now some of the graduate programs at UVM are shrinking. That's part of the reason why we're in transition at the moment. And one of the solutions is to offer courses in other colleges that can attract our students, so that we can fulfill the credit requirements through courses taught by other faculty. That way we can meet the dean's challenge to show how our program can be sustainable. That's the basic challenge we've been faced with.
You're right.
In other words, the budget model the university uses is that programs need to generate
Money.
Enough revenue to pay for costs
themselves. Right. Yeah. not-for-profit, but not that much of a not-for-profit,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. And when, that's also a good, you know, I mean, interdisciplinaryism is, you know, to get out of that silo effect that we can all find ourselves in, you know, and preservation lends itself to that just because the nature of all the stuff that you have to contend with, you know, we're
Nothing is
we
isolated.
reach out to our
Yeah.
regulatory friends and our historic masonry friends, and you know, everyone knows each other, and we steal good ideas constantly. You know,
I feel like that's a really good reflection of trends in the world anyway. A lot of people are getting into this more holistic sort of
Right.
environment and attitude or mindset anyway, so that really fits.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's you know, I always remember the National Trust magazine with the gas can. You know, about, you know, that was what, the 80s, the 70s or something? You know, so it is a good, you know, it's sustainable. Historic preservation is sustainable and sustainability,
Right.
you know, but reminding us all of that, and then, like you said, reaching out to other groups and making
Well, one of the good
case.
things about our program too is that UVM is a land grant institution, and our preservation program has always served Vermont communities. That's the goal of a land grant institution. And I think that by showing where these intersections of culture and nature occur in the context of community, pulls all that together. And but the potential, I think, is really, really good.
Is the coursework bigger now?
Is the well,
Adding,
it'll be flexible enough to meet whatever new needs we face.
what direction people may want to
Yeah,
go
exactly,
into, and
yeah.
yeah, that's cool.
Has the length of the program changed at all, or
No, it's still 30 credits. Well, actually, when you were taking classes, there were 33 or 36, I can't remember.
something? I can't even.
More than 30.
More than 30.
Right, yes, more than 30. I know you got them all in your belt. Now there are 30, and it's a manageable amount, manageable number. And I think that the courses that have remained in place, the policy and planning class, for example, or the preservation practice methods class, can be flexible enough to adapt to, again, address different issues
Yeah.
that are important at any given time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've been such a huge part of this program and teaching in it. Now you're handing the reins off to Devin. Are you still going to be teaching any classes? You're going to be involved in
I have no plans to continue teaching.
You're stepping away. You're retiring.
I'm retiring as of December 31st.
Uh-huh.
I have projects that have been on the shelf for a while, and I'm thinking about those. I haven't quite got that far yet, but they're still there. And one of the projects involved, I mean, years and years ago, I compiled a history of New England's community-owned forests, and the records the historic records of management of those forests are just scattered all over the place. And a lot of the small offices where they're held, for example, state forestry offices, move from time to time and don't have space. Records get thrown out. So I probably wound up holding
All these records.
these records, and they may be the only place where records of that size exist. And so I've been trying to think about ways to organize them and make them available to the public. And there are a couple of points that I think are important in that sense, because New England towns have a tradition of owning and managing woodlands for 400 years.
Right.
And that's a tradition that I think is worth continuing. In addition, there is an ethic of stewardship that runs as a thread throughout all the different periods of ownership in those lands. And there are discussions today about what to do with these forests. There are conflicting uses, whether mountain bikes or motorized vehicles or logging or cross-country skiing or
Jet skis, or not jet skis. Skis.
bolts in a rock wall for mountain climbing. So there's conflict, and the point is that towns have always had these types of conversations and resolve these conflicts. And so the context is this threat of stewardship exists. It's a context to continue trying to resolve these issues, and that's part of stewardship. That's one really important. So the historical context, I think, is a piece to point out. And then the other part that's relevant is that these are great places to demonstrate. They're both cultural and natural resources. A forest, a great example of a natural resource, but there are also cultural imprints throughout these forests, and those cultural imprints are evidence of stewardship. And so what better place to have this discussion about ways to bridge the divide between cultural and natural resource protection. So that's a project.
I smell a book.
It may have.
I was just going to say,
it
is
may
there going to be a
develop. I don't know.
notebook
We'll
here?
see.
Yeah, the accumulation of data and all that involved with that is exciting. So you're going to be busy. There's never nothing to do.
Yeah, I don't have that problem.
Right. Squeezing in a bicycle ride now and again, and setting up your new office.
Yeah.
I enjoy change and transition sometimes. I like the opportunity to create a new space, and I don't know whether it's because I get bored or not, but like we were talking earlier about getting all your books into where they're going to go, and then me just sitting there envisioning and drawing pictures of bookshelves and trying to figure out, I enjoy that. So do you enjoy that, or is this a stressor time for you?
I've been doing this in phases. I've been clearing out my UVM office and moving things in boxes into my Montpelier office, and I haven't quite figured out yet how I'm going to organize things in Montpelier.
But you've got all the forestry stuff in there too.
Yeah, right. I just this week started thinking about how I would organize an office in Montpelier, and I realize it's a different problem altogether, and I need more time to think about it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I know. Thinking about the things that always gets me into trouble, because the minute I start thinking, then there's another idea and another idea, and I could do this. I could do that. It's like there's so many things that we could do.
So anecdotally, the two bookcases I haven't finished yet that have the glass fronts, they have Gothic mahogany doors, sort of tracery, and I found them in a basement in Manhattan 35 years ago.
And they're still not finished.
I've been hauling them around this entire time.
I think we all have something like that, because we're sentimental folk. We can't let things go, because that's the nature of history and historic research. And so as you're exiting, are there any favorite projects of the students that you recall? Because I think that's something that most people don't really understand or know about the preservation program, is that the students do a lot of research. You were talking about the connection to the community and serving the communities. There's a lot there.
That's a great question, and we have actually a list of the projects that we've done in the community preservation project class, and it's incredible to see the types of things students have done. This year we've been working with the Daughters of American Revolution in Cornwall, and putting Sampson Memorial Hall on the National Register. It was created as the Mary Baker Allen chapter house of the Daughters of American Revolution. It was designed by Frank Lyman Austin in 1915. It's really an exquisite little building in colonial revival architecture, and the chapter needs to make it accessible and needs to provide heating. And to do that, to get money to do that, the building needs to be on the National Register. So our students have been doing that, and it's really turned into a good project.
Wonderful.
But there are lots of other projects that are just outstanding. I don't know if you remember Sarah Gralty.
I just talked to her a couple of weeks
Wrote
ago.
the National Register nomination for the Heinsberg Town Forest, which is the country's first town forest to be individually nominated to the National Register.
That's awesome.
Right. Boy, a whole lot. There just sort of an endless list of really good projects.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear you say Frank Lyman Austin, because he's a name that has been popping up for us as a preservation organization, with respect to the Gateway Block and all the
Right.
proposals down there. And one of our board members is I was going to say gallantly, but enthusiastically researching Frank Lyman Austin, because he designed a couple of those buildings. So it's great to hear all these connections, and I think that's what people tend to miss, is that it's not just one building and one architect siloed in time. It's all the dots that are connecting the culture.
Yeah, it opens all those doors. One little thread can open all those doors, and the people. I remember Sarah; she was on our board for a while. We didn't have it this year, but often the UVM grad students do capital needs assessments on buildings at the museum. We have
The
37, 38 historic buildings on the campus, and I've been. Ever since I got there, I've been dragging the students in to get one or two of those a year usually,
It's such great
I'll be knocking on
experience.
Devin's door,
Yeah.
Well, it's really great for the program to be able to connect with both of you on different types of projects, and that's great experience for the students.
It's a deep dive.
It really
for
is.
us.
Yeah, that was the best part for me as a student in the program, is actually get out there and do it, because you can learn so much from the books in the classroom, but actually doing it is a whole other thing. Yeah. And I just wanted to say too, one of my favorite class, my favorite class of all was preservation law, your class. But the other favorite class was also your class, which was history on the land. And for me, that opened my eyes so much when you were talking about the town forests and the cultural landscape, knowing so there's this music going on, we don't know where it's coming
It's
from.
our background. It's our
It's our
theme
background
music.
song, yeah. Just going out and seeing things and being able to identify them and be like, oh, I know what that is now, has been it's carried me through. It's been great. I loved it.
Yeah, that is fun.
It was the same for me. The history on the land class really grew out of a class that I took from Chester Leaves, and it was the same idea, the eye-opening. Oh, you can look at everything around you in this completely different way. And I can still recall Chester saying, when you finish this class, you're never going to look at things the same way. And it was
100% correct. And it's not even just looking at the landscape, it's everything,
Everything,
right? Everything in every piece of life. It's just
All the
phenomenal.
details.
Oh, I'm getting goosebumps.
Well, I told all the students, I said, you're going to be preservationists. Be prepared to be inherently dissatisfied the rest of your lives.
it can be frustrating.
You look at all the details, we're trained to see what's wrong, not
Yeah.
what's right, But, that's why it's so important to step back sometimes and look at that bigger picture, right? So, you're looking at what's wrong with the building, but step back and enjoy the building for what it is and know that you're a part of, you're becoming part of that building's history just by getting involved with it.
Well, John Stilgo, who teaches landscape history, has written a little book called just that, a little book, or it's magic. It's magic outside, or outside is magic, and that's the basic theme. The outside,
really is.
everywhere. The built environment is really a museum. You don't have to go into a museum to study history. It's there everywhere we look.
As long as we don't destroy it.
Right.
Yeah, as long as we are good stewards of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a new class is coming in.
New classes coming in. Yes, and this year, for the first time, we will be offering classes that are taught synchronously, meaning in person, but also available for people who are enrolled remotely. And each class will be divided into two parts, a lecture component with 2 credits and a practica or symposium component of 1 credit. And twice in the fall semester, all the students will convene in Vermont together, work together, exchange ideas, discussion for a 4 or 5 day period. And that way, the students who are enrolled remotely will be able to come away with the same quality of education
Sure,
that
yeah.
the students who are here in Vermont are gaining.
Yeah.
And I think it was important to, I mean, with the pandemic, it became apparent that it would be possible to offer classes remotely.
Yeah.
The technology is there. And so the university began moving in that direction. But I think that it would have been a mistake for us to give up teaching in person. People want to know what it's like to be in Vermont and engage in preservation. Vermont's a model for preservation.
I was going to say, like, the physical environment.
That's a crucial part of what we do.
Right, and everybody comes here and they experience it and they go through the program. And then, of course, we all want to stay here,
Yes.
you know, but
Some of us never leave.
yep. So, you know, but then and it's you know, it's a cliche in a sense, but it's the bonding opportunity of being face to face. You know, I know that, not to naysay any, you know, remote stuff. I did through the pandemic all kinds of webinars and stuff like that to try to keep current and keep involved. But it was, for me, it was a much bigger challenge than the opportunity to come and sit down face to face with folks and talk to them. You know?
But when you're studying historic buildings and landscapes, you have to be there, see them, smell them, touch them, be in that context, right? That is really powerful. And
But
really
you know, the flip side of that, I'm imagining now, you know, the opportunity to remotely come to UVM's historic preservation program, partake in that stuff, but then they can also they'll be going and looking at buildings where they are and bringing that back. So that'll be the opportunity for the students that are here to also experience preservation remotely or further away, you know.
I mean, in some ways we've been doing that all along. Students, we've always had students who take the program over a period of years, who might live in Hartford or somewhere in New England, somewhere capable of, or somewhere close enough so that commuting is possible, and to take a single course in a semester and stay in Burlington for a night or two. And that has worked well for a small number of students. And in some ways what we're doing is just giving that a little bit more structure. And I think that the remote enrollments might appeal to people who are changing careers midlife and know what they want, and
they're very engaged.
Can handle the commuting, or mature, can handle the commuting.
Right, and then
Organize their time.
balance their life while they're trying to do this too. So it's I mean, it's exciting stuff. You know, I'm mad that you didn't come on sooner, but I understand why. And it sounds like there's a lot of good news. There's a lot of, you know, I think a lot of things are going in a really cool direction and stuff. So.
Yeah, well.
And we've had some success with fundraising also. We've created, this is another big move forward, the Paul and Clara Ware Foundation, which is formerly the 1675 Foundation, which is the family foundation of Paul Gates, who is a graduate of one of our classes, later than your class, provided money to create the Historic Preservation Program Director's Endowment.
Excellent.
And the income from that endowment will be used to pay for the salary and benefits of the program's current and future directors, beginning with Devin. And I think that will give the program.
Helps with sustainability. You know that that's there for this, so then the other stuff can be fundraised, easier fundraising in other directions.
Well, I am super glad that the program is here to stay and ongoing, because we were a little worried for a hot minute there when all those changes were coming. So I'm really glad, and thank you for your hard work on that part.
Yeah.
And you know, I think we're getting to the end of our show here.
We are.
I am so glad that you came on, and
thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely, you can come back
Always
anytime.
Always glad to talk with you.
And you'll be there for support. I mean, I'll be calling for support.
Yes,
And I can go home now and put my pitchforks back in the basement because I can feel that you've you've handled things. So
yeah, we wish you the best
it.
of luck in your retirement, and mostly good luck figuring out how to organize all your things.
Right.
So everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thanks to everyone for tuning in to CCTV, live at 575 in the Preservation Burlington. For more information about Burlington's history, our tours and events, Don't ask us. Go to the website and get a marker for your house. preservationburlington.org. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next month.